Today's episode of the Rants of Izzo show is brought to you by Spreely.com. That's all things speak freely. Go to Spreely if you haven't checked it out already. On your smart TV, that's Spreely TV. On your smartphone, it's Freedom Hub, all one word. Check out things like the Shannon Joy podcast, Report and Opine. Who else do we have? Pete Santilli's back. The Evening Rants, and of course the Burn Pit podcast, and us, Rants of Izzo show here live every Monday through, well, you know it is. Whatever. I got a head cold. All right, let's have a show.
Prepare yourself.
The opinions of the host and guests on this show are exclusively just that, opinions. That means that they shouldn't be the cause of your state of being offended. Why does everybody get so butthurt?
Okay, let's go.
Ready, go!
Sit down, shut up, and pay attention.
Damn!
This is the Rants of Izzo Show with your host, Dominic Izzo, from porn to politics. We touch every third rail we can find. You might want to put your headphones on so your mom can't hear this. It's been called the most entertaining 60 minutes on the internet, and it starts now. Let's do this.
All right, and after a week of being sick, let's see how today goes. This is the Rants of Izzo show here on Spreely TV. It's good to see everybody in the chat. Kelly, April, Sean, Bev, Morgan, Sarah. I appreciate him. Maddie Wack, is he in there? I don't even know. Well, Maddie Wack, he is in there. Burn Pit Podcast, live today at 4 p.m. Guys, I appreciate the week off. I got hit with a sinus cold. Got some post-nasal drip going on today. Beautiful. Sorry to my co-host for that right in your ear. I really don't care, but it is what it is. And we're back at it. The based mother, Elena Barbara, sitting here with me today from American Groomer. We had her on. God, we had you on probably 6-8 months ago.
Yeah, I think so.
It's great to see you again. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back. Psyched to be here.
Yeah, it was supposed to be last Monday, and then I had technical difficulties, and then Tuesday I was going to have you on, but then I got hit with this cold, and I'm like, screw this. And just all week, I'm like, I'm done. So
that's all right. It all worked out.
It did. Appreciate that. Let's do a recap really quickly. Who is the based mother? What is this American Groomer? Because people need to know why it's important for you being on again, and I'm glad you're on. It's awesome. I love your content when you do it. You have a no bullshit persona, which is awesome. It just fits in great with us. But who are you? What do you do? And why should people care? We need to learn all about that first.
All right. So honestly, I'm just a regular average American who got so tired of all the woke nonsense and the lies from the mainstream media and feeling like I was being bullied by my government. Like everybody was feeling the way I was feeling, but a lot of people, at least in my circle, wouldn't speak up. I was living in Boston, Massachusetts, of all places, blue land, and everyone was just like, you can't say anything. You can't say anything. And I was like, to hell with all of it. I'm going to say what I'm thinking and let the chips fall where they may. So, my son had put me on YouTube, so I got a little comfortable with it. And then it just turned into me digging for truth and telling the truth. And when it came to the film, I heard all these stories online about book banning from the media. And I was like, this is fishy. So I bought the books, read the books, and saw that they were basically hardcore pornography, and decided to make a documentary about it, about the history of how this happened, how it came that in most states it's legal to show pornography to children in schools and libraries. And I put together a 36-minute fast jam-packed documentary and made it free. And it's because I want people to wake up and start fighting. I need a few people in every school district in America to get up and hold the feet to the fire of their school board and get this garbage out of our schools.
I sat there and I was going to have some type of a format today where we're going to be a little bit political and talk about Hunter Biden being pardoned and this and that stuff. But I just got triggered because it's the truth, to where anybody who hasn't seen the documentary American Groomer needs to see it, because it's the reality of what is being pumped in these kids' faces. And when I first started watching, like what was going on in society, and all these parents going to these meetings and claiming, oh, they're putting porn in front of our kids. Now, I'm not a father, and I know the power of words for political leverage on either side. So I'm like, no, they're not putting porn in front of your kids. And then I started watching and actually listening to some of what the parents were reading. And in my opinion, it's worse than pornography. You have porn, when anybody thinks porn, especially as an adult, you've got like the imagery, right? And it's just the hardcore imagery or whatnot. In my generation, it was like Hustler magazine and Cherry and this and that. Yeah. And in today's day and age, it's available everywhere. I dated a woman back in 2009, or I was like 2010 or something, and she's like, she had her computer open and there were Google images of like breasts and whatnot. She's like, why are you searching this on my computer? I'm like, I'm not. What are you talking about? Look, you're looking at this. I'm like, no, if I want to watch porn, I'm going to search some hardcore stuff. She go, how do you know this is not your son? My son doesn't know how to do that. It's not available. You have to go to special websites. I'm like, no, it's available. But my point is the what's happening with the schools is actually worse because you're leaving it creatively to imagination. And I've read or listened to what some people like you have put out for everybody to discover. You talk about anal, talk about blowjobs, talk about this, and instead of like the difference between reading a book and a movie, right? You create the story in your head over a book, and it's far more powerful. That's what they're doing with the kids, which is about, in my opinion, 1,000,000 times worse than imagery. You are leaving these children to be influenced with their creative, endless imagination brains, and then we know what they're going to do. They're going to ask a trusted adult about this crap, and that's where predators move in, because now you got that power, right? The teachers, the priests, the people who are in positions of authority to really fucking let their sexual fantasies go over their kids. Here's a question that I posed over the weekend, which it kind of hit me, and it goes into what you're talking about. Where are the men and the police in society actually doing their jobs? And what I mean by that is I think that men have absolutely failed society. We've watched these drag queen story hours for years go on, and you have all these moms who go online. You actually put your money where your mouth is. You risk a lot by actually going out in public and doing this, so I admire you. But what about all the moms out there who are like, man, don't bring mama bear out in me? And then, we don't see them doing the same power that the left does, which is protest and maybe even sometimes peacefully protest these locations. But we don't see the women, the men, the husbands, who look at what women are talking about and then going and protecting their children. And we don't see cops going, fuck this. We are arresting school teachers, presidents, all this shit, because this is 100% contributing delinquency of a minor, child endangerment, and all that. It's vile and disgusting. Why is it not happening?
Well, there's a lot to it. So first of all, men being emasculated, allowing themselves to be emasculated by the modern feminist movement is their own fault. And we're seeing the results of it. Our society is completely destroyed. I mean, we have more single mothers than ever before, where men do exist in so many cases. They just sit back and let the woman run the show. And it's not working. So why aren't men protecting? If my father ever heard that when I was 11 years old, somebody showed me some of this stuff that these children are seeing, there would have been him, my uncles, posses arriving to take care of business. So there's that. The men have just been emasculated and they're afraid to speak up, and they're constantly told, just don't, right? No, sit back. Then you have the fact that the police can't do anything because, like I said, in 3/4 of states, it is legal to show pornography to children in schools and in libraries. If you show it to them on the street, in a coffee shop, the mall, you could leave in handcuffs and be charged criminally. But there's a criminal exemption statute in those states where it's okay because it has quote unquote educational value. No one can explain to me the real educational value of teaching an 11-year-old the ins and outs of anal masturbation. That's what's in these books. Why do children need to know about orgies? Why do children need to fully understand pansexuality? Because on December 8th, coming up in schools across America, we will be celebrating Pansexual Pride Day. So they're normalizing sex 4 children. They're normalizing, have sex with anyone and everyone. It's good. And we should be proud of this. So this degeneracy is leading children from, non-contact sexual abuse, which is the grooming that's happening in the schools, to contact sexual abuse, and making them more primed and ready for predators online and in their life, more likely to be sex trafficked in their own communities and globally. It's just wild.
They're becoming groomers themselves. Because you do this now. I'm very open about my past, and it's like I'm into certain lifestyles and kink and all that as a consenting adult, and it stems from trauma as a younger kid. And it stems from friggin' seeing pornographic images way too early from what I was into. So now you're perpetuating these kids who can't process it, and we know that anybody who's ever been through any type of sexual abuse, they shut down or they go hypersexual. Well, What about all the boys and the girls who go hypersexual and then suck others into this world? It's a perpetuation of evil. It's fucking evil.
Very common for children to then sexually abuse each other. Yes.
My question is, how does that make you feel about our cops when what you said there's a criminally exempt statute? That makes
their hands are tied. They can't do anything.
See, I disagree. Yes, they can. If they swore an oath to the Constitution and to the Constitution of their state, if they're public servants, I want to read this story really quickly. This was from last week. Mom can proceed with gender affirming care of preteen son dealing with dad. Brutal low blow after long fights for parental custody. A California judge dealt a devastating blow to a Texas father in his years-long fight to stop his ex-wife from allowing their preteen son, who identifies as a girl named Luna, to receive gender-affirming care. Father of 2, Jeff Younger, he's 59 years old, announced that he lost all parental rights over his twin sons after L.A. County Superior Judge Mark Junis granted his estranged pediatric ex-wife, Anne Gregorius, fucking Greeks, the authority to castrate 12-year-old son, James. Quote, I lost all parental rights to my son. Goodbye, boys. Perhaps we'll meet. Okay, he writes this. Chemical castration involves the use of puberty-blocking drugs to stop sex hormone productions. Unlike surgical castration, chemical castration does not remove organs, while the Department of Health and Human Resources claim this practice is reversible. I've talked about the hormones like crazy.
It's not reversible.
No, there's no fucking way in hell it is. Here's my question. Now, that's a 12-year-old son. I have a problem with this trans movement because I think that it's female induced and supported, where I think it's mostly crazy, projected mothers who Munchausen by proxy, where they put their issues onto their kids.
Yes, that's what Munchausen by proxy is. I think there's definitely a lot of that in this movement. And
huge.
Just the wanting to belong somewhere, the wanting to belong to something because you're an uninteresting, godless person and you need a place in society. So you come to this place and mutilate your children. And now you have a community all of a sudden.
Well, as a dad, I don't understand the concept of allowing anyone to do your son or your child at 12 years old can't make those decisions. They cannot. I can't tell you how many times that as a cop, I guess this is my argument. If a 12-year-old child was driving to the store, right? All of a sudden, mom is deathly sick and she's about to die. And if she doesn't get Robitussin cough medicine, she's going to fucking die. And it's wintertime outside, so the son, he says, I'm going to go save my mom. So he gets in the Jeep and he traverses 2 miles down the road to get the cough medicine, comes back, and I find out about it. I'm going to arrest mom for contributing to delinquency of my son saved my life and he did this. Doesn't make a difference. I have the authority through the state to do that. But a mom can have their child castrated chemically. You could put poison into their bodies. Nothing will happen to the mother. And if the dad does what he's supposed to do, which is protect their son at all cost, he's going to be arrested. As far as I'm concerned, that dad should have every fucking lawful authority. Now, this is extreme, to go to the doctor's appointment the day the kid is about to be mutilated and put a bullet in everyone's head who is involved, including the mother, who is about to harm his child.
Protect his child. Yes.
But the cops will arrest him.
We're talking about chemical castration here. So those drugs that they give to the children are the same exact drug that that the court orders pedophiles to take. Convicted pedophiles take Lupron to chemically castrate them so they stop developing sex hormones. And that's what we're giving to children on purpose, because they're sitting around and they're going, we're not making enough money with this drug. Let's see what we can come up with. And this is what they're doing. Now they're getting kids on them. But it's beyond that. So I don't know if you have seen the stoptheharmdatabase.com yet. State by state, it lists how many, it's not just puberty blockers, and it's not just hormones. In 48 states, children, minors, have been given surgeries, sex change surgeries, mastectomies, hysterectomies, Adam's apple shaving, vaginoplasties, all of it. So it's not, they're saying, oh, remember all the years they were saying no surgeries are happening. That's not true. The database covers the last 5 years around the country. Over 1,000 in California, hundreds in Massachusetts. But again, 48 states. It's not a red state versus a blue state issue. This has grown to the point of being absolute madness. And then to get back to this father, I mean, the whole other conversation around family court and parental rights and the way men are treated in family court is atrocious. But both men and women are being treated badly in court as parents around the country. When it comes to this gender ideology. What about the parents in Maryland took their kid to Children's National in Washington, D.C.? They had a 15-year-old autistic boy. They took him there because he tried to kill himself. They're like, we need help. They come back to the parents and they go, oh, no, he'll be fine. It's just that he's a girl. So that's what we're going to do. And the parents, they're both military veterans here in the States, Christians. They were like, that's not our problem. That's not us. And they said, oh, yeah. And they called the authorities, DCS, and they had the child taken from the parents. So, and
how do you not go full on fucking John Rambo and kill everyone involved? I can't. We know this. I grew up in the 70s. And if you mouthed off in public, you caught a crack. But today, if you have a child who's throwing a shit fit at a restaurant and you backhand the child to correct their behavior, DCFS will come to your home. They will rip the kid out of the home. They'll start a case on you that'll last a year, and you'll have some fucking hag in your living room once a week trying to determine if you're a fit parent. But it's okay to do this to your kids? And you'll be arrested if you say, if you threaten, hey, doc, just so you know, you lay a hand on my kid, I'm gonna fucking kill you. You'll be arrested and you'll never see your kid again. Our police are terrorists. They don't honor their oath. They are the fucking problem. Because I ask this, and Matt called in. I got to call Matt in a second. Matty Wack from Burn Pit Podcast. It's always threat of violence, right? You won't speed because there's a threat of violence that if you do, it could lead all the way up to your death by cop. The only reason these parents are complying, or this man looked at this judge who made this insane ruling, is because he could be killed if he doesn't obey. The cops will come to his home. They will gun him fucking down in the process of protecting his child. Our police are the enemy, 100% in my view.
Well, the thing is, though, so even in the states where it's let's just go back to the pornography, where it's illegal to show the kids in schools. The police can come and arrest a teacher for doing it, but the DAs aren't prosecuting because they don't want to play politics, because they're convinced, because they don't want to be called a transphobe or a homophobe, when all of these pornographic books aren't even about the Rainbow Mafia. A lot of them are hetero books. I could read to you right now, straight scenes, rape, incest, just threesomes. I mean, vulgar erotica that's in elementary schools now. We're finding them. These same books are in K-8 schools. because they want them for the middle school students, the 11-year-olds, so they're in K-8 schools. The cops literally cannot do anything. So, I'm not necessarily blaming them. And constitutionally speaking, it is up to each school district whether they get the porn out of the schools or not. And that is a Supreme Court ruling. So, I appreciate where, I'm okay with criticizing cops where it's fair, but when you look at the law, they truly do have their hands tied.
They should be. We all saw what they did during the pandemic, and they enforced unconstitutional mandates and shit. But it blows me away how they would allow. They should be going in massive numbers. We are not going to allow this to happen. They should be surrounding the doctor's office where this broad is going to drop her kid off for this chemical castration and saying, you're not gaining entry. It's not going to happen. Where are they? I don't, me personally, because that was my profession. I don't accept that. Well, our hands are tied. It's an unconstitutional, fucking illegal, immoral order. Matt, we got to call you really quickly. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, let's talk to Matt, but we'll talk about the Constitution because the Supreme Court's talking about gender affirming care this week.
Matty Whack, Burn Pit Podcast. You're chomping at the bit to make a statement.
Yeah, hold on 1 second here. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, that's fine. God
Can you
knows
hear me now?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Sorry. Thanks for calling me back. Yeah, I just want to chime in, Dominic. 100% I am in agreement with you. I don't care what law is on the book, whether it's a constitutional amendment or whether it's a law written by a state. Now, that being said, it must be backed by violence. Otherwise, it has no teeth, and it is simply a mere suggestion. Any law written, tax code, building requirement, or any of these laws must be backed by the threat of violence. That being said, if the cops refuse to do anything about it because they don't think they can do anything, then they are 100% at fault. This is the endangerment of a child, and there is no argument against that. They can physically make the arrest. Are they in fear of losing their job? 100%. They are in fear of losing their job. However, if they all stick together and they arrest the DA on top of that, or ignore the DA, ignore the judges, they can do that as well. Why? Because the executive branch is a separate branch from the judicial, which is again separate from the legislative. Separation of powers. Any law enforcement agent does not have to enforce an unconstitutional law, and they can enforce anything that is constitutional. Separation of powers. Cops are 100% to blame. If they are arresting the parents for going in and resisting this or speaking out against it as some sort of hate speech, the police going in, making the arrest on the parents are 100% to blame because now they are instituting the violence that we talked about, and that's what scares these men. Your guest, and I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but you're talking about the emasculation of men, 100%. They're emasculated because of the government having all the power to issue out violence. Why? Because the men in this country refuse to gather in large numbers to resist all of this depravity, degradation, and demoralization of our culture. This is why we have a Second Amendment, for men to gather in large numbers and resist, because the price of freedom and the price of sanctity of our culture is death. And if you're not willing to pay the price, then you will never have freedom and you will never have a righteous moral culture. Go ahead, Dominic. I'm done with my rant.
Appreciate that, Matt. You guys are live today, 4 p.m. Eastern, Burn Pit Podcast. Everyone can listen to you there. All right. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your call.
Absolutely.
As a man, this is where I get frustrated because isn't there a part of you as a mom and as a female where you're like, okay, you don't care how constitutionally or federally or Supreme Court backed this insane law is. you want the men in your life to stand up and do something about it? Have you lost hope and faith in men and what we're supposed to fucking do?
I have. All the good men in my family, most of the good men in my family are dead now, and so it's strange to see that this younger generation of men coming up. Think about all the men a few years ago who we saw marching around the country wearing those pink pussy hats. Just these feminized, broken men, and that's half our society. So I know that there are good, strong men out there, but even the stronger men out there aren't really standing up for their children and their wives when it comes to this. I mean, again, we're talking about two different issues, but they're related. The porn in the schools is one thing, but let's go back to this transgender thing. So Wednesday, we have this issue coming up. Oral arguments are going to be heard in the Supreme Court in the U.S. versus Skermeti case. Last year, Tennessee banned gender-affirming care in the state. It immediately got challenged, and then there was an injunction put on the law, and they had to keep allowing the gender-affirming care on minors. Then it rose to the Sixth Circuit Appeals Court, and they lifted the injunction. So the law is in place. Now this week it's getting heard in the Supreme Court. We should have a decision, within the next couple of months. And that's going to frame, that decision is going to really be, monumental for the rest of the country. And so that people can be able to decide if they want this in their state or not. I don't know why it is not a federal mandate that it is banned, but this may even be able to inform that, and maybe we can ban it at the federal level, because this gender affirming care in the kids, there's overwhelming evidence that it's unhealthy, that it doesn't help them, that it doesn't do anything, that it sterilizes, mutilates, creates, young girls with osteoporosis, increases the risks of testicular cancer in boys. I mean, and they're saying, though, that it's a 14th Amendment violation to block it. They're saying it's discrimination based on sex. So, other famous 14th Amendment cases include like Brown versus the Board of Education. We can't segregate schools anymore. Title IX, where giving women the rights to their sports. That was the 14th Amendment case. But this isn't about sex. This isn't discrimination based on sex. This is using logic applied to, age and medical uses, proper, safe medical uses for certain procedures and drugs, like the hormones, like a mastectomy, if God forbid a 17-year-old has breast cancer, is different than chopping off a 13-year-old's breasts because she feels like it.
Here's the contradiction. Videos going around of a mom in Georgia who was arrested by police for allowing her 10-year-old son to walk to the store, right? And the way that, there was never any age on the books for when you could stay home when I was a cop. It was like the requirements we kind of had, because in law enforcement you can kind of bend everything to your narrative. So let's just say, for argument's sakes, and this is how authority is abused. You got a 13-year-old who is home babysitting two other kids while mom is out, with her friends at a restaurant or something. Well, I don't like mom. So I can articulate 13-year-old doesn't know where mom is, doesn't have their means. So this was like before cell phones and whatnot. You can't call mom, can't get a hold of mom, all this shit. I can arrest the kid for child endangerment. Well, some people would go, yeah, but that 13-year-old is mature enough to do it. It's all subjective based on the eyes of the law. So here if we have a 10-year-old who can't walk to a convenience store or grocery store and is going to get arrested by your police, but your police will do fucking nothing when a parent is going to have them fucking castrated. Yeah. I hate to keep beating a dead horse.
No,
it's like, if I don't understand why you have a village board, school board meeting, and you've got let's just say a male superintendent who is listening to all the parents in the audience talk about, we don't want our child being subjected to this. And we know what the conservative solutions is, and that's, well, remove your kid from school and homeschool them. I have a feeling that that's probably not financially feasible for a lot of families out there. Why can't a group of men go introduce classical conditioning to the school board principal, beat the shit out of him until he understands the error of his ways, and then hesitates the next time that any type of child endangerment issues are brought up. I don't care. I am with Matt on this, and it's so frustrating why it all, in my opinion, all boils down to men not doing their job and threatening with violence the government to protect children. We just don't do it. And
there is no threat of violence from the people or the police to the government anymore. We have completely relinquished our rights. How many people do you know? Now, me, as a grown up, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, then raised my son in Boston. I don't know anybody in a militia, which is our constitutional right. But I do know a lot of people who, if they hear about a militia, it is like stigmatized as being crazy, and only maniacs would engage in that. And the more I learn about it now, and the more I understand, the more I want to engage and support and be a part of something that can resist the government. Because look at what we've done. Look at what they've done, how they just run roughshod across everything. They're telling our 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds in pre-K that they're born in the wrong body, and that they can't trust their parents because their parents may have gotten it wrong when they were born. It turns into ultimately parents, like we're talking about, being taken away. So it's not just the police's fault, it's our fault. The police can take off their uniform and act as citizens and men in their community without even using the badge, and impose that threat against the government, which they fully deserve.
You have to follow Matt and Scott, the Burn Pit podcast. Matt actually came on. We did a whole full episode on militias, and learn that in Illinois, you cannot form a militia in the state of Illinois without permission from the governor. Makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
Another infringement. I mean, it goes on and on. Illinois is a psychopath state, though.
Yeah, I can't stand this place. You just said something, and I had a point. You just said something. You talked about, crap. Damn it. I had something good I was going to bring up. Oh, the increase of disappearing parents' rights. Again, I don't know how old you are. I was born in 75. And
I'm older than you.
Okay, so you understand this. I was raised heavy-handed. My father never laid a hand on me growing up. My mother beat the shit out of us. It's how it was. Myself and my sisters turned out to be extremely strong, contributing members of society, no criminal records, and we turned out to be pretty damn good people who are empathetic, and we give a shit about stuff. As time went on, nothing made sense where all of a sudden you would hear about parents being arrested for disciplining their kids, or kids would I'll never forget. It was one of my first years as a cop, and I went to a domestic with 14-year-old versus mom, and the call just came out. Domestic in progress. Whatever, blah, blah, go to the home, and there's a screaming 14-year-old, and the parent is like, I need your help. We're like, what? My daughter just told me to go fuck myself. What? It's like, she won't clean her room, and I told her to do it. She told me to go fuck myself. Then she called the police. I'm like, I don't understand. So what's the problem?
What am I doing here? Yeah.
But we learned over time that these parents were so paranoid and petrified to discipline their kids, but it was also their fault. Because, as you know, we started to see timeout discipline. We started to see take away toys instead of classical conditioning. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the Dr. Spock pediatrics book?
Like vaguely. I never read it.
It was like, you learned about classical conditioning and shit, but that was all taken away. Parents did this to themselves. They created this over the last several years. So the ultimate question I would have out of this is, how is this undone? How is this bell unrung? Because I don't ever see it being solved, especially through voting and mandates. I don't see any of that fucking shit happening at all.
Did you see the video that's going around today about the little girl in Walmart? She's going around Walmart and just smashing jars on the ground, throwing things off the shelf.
Yeah,
and there's
girl.
Somebody filming, and you can hear the white lady in the background going, "Don't touch her. You don't know what she's going through." And this kid is wreaking havoc. There's no adult that belongs to her. Like when she started smashing bottles, somebody should have picked her up and restrained her and gotten her out of the store or into a back room until the cops could come.
You can't, because that person will get arrested. You can't touch that. It blows you. What you just said is common sense. But I will tell you firsthand how this works. You have an out of control little shit who's destroying stuff. A citizen will. You could have a kid stabbing another child. And a bystander will come up and grab that kid and restrain them. Cops will come up. They will restrain the kid. Blah, 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 blah. Mom will come up. She'll look at whoever restrained them and demand they be arrested. And cops will do that.
Yeah, right. And it used to be, remember, if your mother got a phone call from someone in the neighborhood and said Dominic was throwing rocks at my house, or whatever, or Dominic got in a fight or anything, your mother would have been like, what did you do? What did you do? Tell me what's up. She would have, it never would have said to the adult, like, oh, why'd you shoot the hose at my kid for throwing rocks at your house? She would have said, you would have been the one in trouble and you would have had to apologize and fix whatever you broke. It's this brokenness, but how do we get back from it? We talk about it, I guess, and we start to, point out the flaws and the obvious results of this to a younger generation of parents, who are going to be who are having children right now. Babies that are being born right now in 20 years can be decent members of society if we train their parents and say there was mistakes made by our generation, probably the younger set of our Gen X and then the millennials. But, Gen Xers, for the most part, weren't too gentle on the parenting. We were more gentle than our parents, but not as gentle.
No, it started early 2000s with the participation award trophies and all that crap. And then that led into now these kids who are rioting in the streets because they can't get the flavored ice cream that they want. Again, I don't know how to course correct this without some sort of threat of violence, because there was a study done, and I'm seeing it in action through my niece. My niece is going to be 17 in January. And she, I thought she was going to grow up to be liberal and all this stuff and, whatever, do that. But she'll send me text messages like, holy shit, this is what they're teaching in high school today. And she'll she was showing me notes that she had written down from watching the debate between Biden and Trump. And I was like, holy shit, are you conservative? This is great. Well, the study I read was that her generation will become more conservative than most generations in the past because they're tired of the liberal bullshit ideology.
Yes.
But that being said, where's the action to put the foot down? Meaning that we still know that it doesn't matter who it is, you're going to get these liberals who are in positions of power. Nothing is ever fucking done. It's almost like the annoying character in a movie who gets away with everything, and you want to see somebody belt them, just sock them in the fucking jaw at the end of the movie to go, this is how life works. That's what we need. We need that type of action being done before people go, okay, I got to stop getting away with this crap.
I think the younger people coming around is going to be a big thing. I think that, frankly, people like you and I, when it comes to hiring decisions, have had it. If you have pronouns on your resume, it's going straight in the trash, right? I mean, not even looking. I don't care. If you have Harvard on your resume, unless it was handed to me by Donald Trump, who said this isn't a lunatic, it's going in the trash. So they're going to have to learn the hard way, which is, not violence, but it's going to feel like violence to them because they've been given participation trophies their entire life. It's like you said, you can't have your favorite flavor of ice cream feels like violence for them. Words are violence for them. But when they can't earn a living and they're being rejected from society because of all of their emotionally based nonsense, they're going to have to either learn or just fall to the very bottom of the barrel. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. And your niece, my son, that generation who has turned conservative, they will raise up the next generation of decent Americans.
That's a good question too, because you're in the middle of this, right? Like you're at ground zero, seeing, if you really look at the forced sexuality of kids in school, if you expose them to that. We know that going back to the concept of shutting down or going hypersexual, whatever, you're creating a society of degenerates. And
Yes.
those degenerates cannot function properly in committed relationships. Have you started to think about, all right, I'm at ground zero. What does 30 years from now look like? What does the quote nuclear family look like? What does how many women have 3 children from 3 different fathers? And then that perpetuates because that's all the kids know. How many men know that? Because we're worried about men objectifying women. And what porn does for men is it creates an unreasonable expectation of how women behave in the bedroom. Well, wait a second. That's what porn is doing to adult men. What are you creating in the eyes of young, influential children at the earliest stages possible? How do you think relationships and households and families are going to look in the next 30, 40 years?
I'm so glad you brought this up, because if you think we have a mental health crisis right now, you haven't seen anything yet. As the next 10, 20, 30 years progresses, all these children who are being groomed and sexually abused by each other and everyone else because they're being taught to just jump on everything that moves, right? So children who are over-sexualized end up with PTSD, alcohol problems, drug problems. They are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide. They also have higher rates of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, because of all the mental, emotional stress that they put on their bodies and their minds. Then when all of those things makes you unable to, as you said, function in relationships, function in jobs, function in society, we're going to have to reopen. Half the country is going to be in an insane asylum in 30 years if we stay on this path and we don't start protecting our children. And then you add in the food, the vaccines, all the poison that we put into their bodies a day in and day out, that we have so many already broken families. I mean, where are we headed? We're headed off a cliff if we don't stop this.
Yeah, it 100% is like desensitization. And when you put all those, the external factors into within arm's reach, like I always say, dogs and kids, like, I'm sorry, I would have had a very, very well-trained kid. If you look at dogs are pack animals that if you let your dog pull on the leash 30 feet ahead of you when you're walking, the dog's not going to be happy. The dog has to know where his place is, who he is in the pack, and he needs to be tired out so that he understands, oh, this is what life is. Same with kids. Kids need to have discipline, structure. They need to be tired out. They need to be, physically stimulated with sports and all that shit so that their hormones and their cycle of development is done properly. When you have everything at fucking arm's reach, the chicken nuggets 5 days a week, pizza, candies, unhealthy fucking drinks, and then I've talked about this several times. When I babysat my niece when she was 2 and 3, she was literally addicted to cocoa melon. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And I took a look at it. For any parents who's ever seen Cocoa Melon, go watch it. Every 3 seconds, the scene of Cocoa Melon will change. It's always done to a song, and it's done to a changing scene every 3 seconds. It cycles next, and it sucks the kids in to predictive programming of just like being babysat. So if visually, auditory, nutritionally, or lack of, and now sexually, which is the worst fucking one, if you're dumbing that down for kids, I think it's like you're creating moldable fucking clay for an army of just like drones who will, I don't know whatever their ultimate plan is, but they've
just
got
do
this
anything
system
for
worked out.
quick pleasure without any big plan for their life or anything, and never ever be satisfied, right?
Mm-hmm. No, that's the biggest thing. Well, again, and I don't know what your faith is, but that's where my faith is. I'm a Christ follower. I can't stand Christians, but I'm a Christ follower. So it's like you ultimately know, I don't need to chase that fucking chocolate cake because it's going to give me 5 seconds of pleasure and then 2 days of fucking shit. So I'm going to go this direction. Well, if you remove that, or if you remove faith, now these kids have no answer whatsoever. That's
a big part of the problem, isn't it? I mean, and that's part of the plan, isn't it? And not only are we talking about like social, emotional, mental destruction, we're talking about physical problems too. They've got these kids lined up to get more and more and more STDs. So every new year of people who get STDs adds about $15-16 billion in lifelong medical expenses that are going to go to the medical industrial complex. So you catch herpes. Now you're on whatever the herpes drug is for the rest of your life. The abortion money that comes in, and the mental, emotional, and physical trauma that comes from abortion, and abortion after abortion after abortion, because they're teaching kids that that's just normal. So it's just about money and destruction of the family and normalizing pedophilia. Because if we normalize pedophilia and we really convince everybody that this is a-okay, then if the Epstein list ever comes out, we're like, whatevs, everybody does it. That's what I think is ultimately the plan. Try to make it normal so that all the freaks at the top and the elites who like to diddle children don't have to feel like they have to look over their shoulder anymore.
Are we the only, in everything that you studied and you looked at, are we the only culture who's like this? Do you see other, like, I have a hard time knowing what I policed, and I policed a town that was about 60% Hispanic, and the family unit is just insanely important to them. I can't picture we had dealt with a lot of illegal immigrants. It is what it is. But I personally had no problems with those who were from Mexico who were here illegally, because they shut up. They worked several jobs. They ran a tight household.
It was different. It was
very different.
Yeah.
But I know that if those moms, if you had a son who thought he was trans, that mother would beat the shit out of the kid to correct his behavior. Wouldn't allow that.
Yeah.
Are we, or if they found out that these kids were being taught this in school, there would be hell to pay. Are we the only Western culture that allows this shit? Or I don't know anything about Middle Eastern culture. I don't know anything about European culture, but is this the norm, or is this just us?
It's happening in Western Europe, Australia. It's not happening in Eastern Europe. It's certainly not happening in the Middle East. But, the Latinos here in America, they're not doing anything about this, and their kids are being targeted just as much as anybody else. They have millions and millions of children in American public schools. And a lot of these books that I'm talking about, whether the gender books and the gender confusion books or the actual porn books, they're now produced in multiple languages. They're not just going for the white kids who speak English. Every one of them is also produced in Spanish and on the shelf in the school. So I actually just had my film translated into Spanish, and I'm going to be putting it out to the Spanish community, because where are they in this?
Well, there's one reason.
They do have strong family units, but they're not in the fight either, because they don't know what's happening.
Well, they also know the consequence, and it's a brilliant tactic to keep them pacified. You give them opportunity. They rent a home that's got 3 bedrooms, and they got, there's a family of 6 or whatnot. Dad's working 2-3 jobs to keep everything going on. Mom stays home. She runs the household. They'll never say anything, because once the authorities are involved, now they take a look at their immigration status. And why would they rock the boat and risk being deported when they could just shut their mouths, do the job, and live the American dream? That's how it is. That's why when Trump came, first he sat there and people said they're sending over the rapists, and that wasn't what he was referring to. I've been very public about this. It's actually part of their culture. If you look at some, I don't know if they're states or provinces or counties in Mexico, but some of the age of consents were as low as 13. So when you have that culture that drinks all day on the weekends and does blow to do their fucking job like crazy, and they're hard-working people, the amount of unreported rape and sexual abuse cases that happen in those families is insane, because now no mom is going to report dad's been abusing the daughter, because if he's taken out of the home, who's going to provide for them? It's massively underreported in that culture. So that's why they don't say shit as well, too. It's hung over their heads.
So even if you have citizenship and you have legal status, maybe you don't want to draw a light to your neighbors and friends and family, your closest family who doesn't have what you have. I get it. But if that's the case, I tend to think that it's really just a lack of knowledge. Because when I do talk to people about what's going on in the schools in both of these issues, porn and gender bending stuff, they either say, oh, it's not happening. They say, oh, that may be happening, but it would never happen in my school. I know what's going on here. And they have no idea. So my son was raised in the north end of Boston. Okay, that is Little Italy in Boston. And super Catholic area. The school that he went to from K to 6 now teaches gender ideology in kindergarten.
Public school?
public school, the Elliott School in Boston in the North End, teaches gender ideology. So they have a play that comes in called The Pineapple Project, where they talk about how, everybody can wear whatever they want or be whatever they want. They have, the books Sparkle Boy and these other gender bending books that are there, board books, baby books with bright colors and fun illustrations for children. Now, this is a Catholic community that was almost all Italian. I mean, I'm so glad to be out of there. And it's the same principle as when my son was there.
Nobody says shit. I don't know the ins and outs, but my niece went to the exact same grammar school that my sister and my other sister, her mother, went to. And we were all proud to watch her graduate. It was like, 40 something years of, we joke. It's like my father it's like, man, how much tuition have you paid for all of us and for the last 40 years? I met one of her like 8th grade teachers. So she graduates 13 or 14 years old, and her teacher is 23 years old. And I'm like, this is a different generation. 23 years old when I was a kid was mature, a lot different.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to wonder, it's like, wait a second, you're 23 years old, you're teaching these kids and you're a kid yourself. I don't care if this is Catholic or not. What ideologies are you still bringing in? Because you've got your own social biases.
It's not even her social biases, is that the education programs in colleges that are producing our teachers are teaching them to be social activists. Everything has to be about equity and societal change and having a voice. These kids come in determined to shape and indoctrinate instead of teach. The teachers that we had, they couldn't wait for us to learn how to read. And when we learned how to do, calculus or pre-cal, they were thrilled. They're like, look at what your mind can do. They taught us. They don't even care about that anymore. Look at the numbers. Our kids can barely read and write. Most kids aren't ready to even enter into, after graduating high school, couldn't even handle a 101 math or reading class in a community college. They're not equipped for it. So the standards just have to keep getting lowered and lowered because these teachers are not being taught to teach.
Do you remember?
So that's that 23-year-old.
Do you remember what diagramming a sentence was?
No.
Okay, so diagramming a sentence was the teacher would draw up on a board a line, and then there would be like a slash in the line, then a comma in the line, this and that. And then she would have a sentence like, the dog ran down the street after the car. And you'd have to find where the verb went. And you have to find where the gerund went. And all. And it kills me because I loved English class. I loved learning. Like, I am a grammar Nazi from fucking hell.
I love it too.
7. But today's generation is like Cardi B language. I don't know if you've ever read one of her tweets. It's that is how kids talk. No punctuation, run-on sentences, abhorrent fucking grammar. And that's what they're taught. And it's accepted 100% because we're in a language of
you're
memes.
absolutely right. So in Florida, I was talking to a teacher up in St. Johns County where St. Augustine is. I'm not sure if this is a statewide or just a countywide initiative. They're switching back to teaching phonics.
Oh my God.
So now all the teachers have to go and get retrained on how to teach English with using phonics. Like you and I, we could have read it. By the 8th grade, we were reading War and Peace. Mm-hmm. These kids can barely read a Bazooka comic in the 8th grade. Gerund? You just said the word gerund?
Yeah, it looks like a noun, acts like a verb.
Any of them know? You think any of these kids could tell you what a gerund is? Mm-hmm. Couldn't pick it out if it stared them in the face. It's atrocious. The Department of Education as soon as it came into play, everything went downhill, and it's been 50 years of just awfulness. And yes, you're right. These kids can't speak, they can't read, they can't write, and God forbid they should ever read the Declaration of Independence, but they don't even teach cursive anymore.
I'm telling you, it's going to be a group of men that need to stand shoulder to shoulder with weapons in front of a school board and go, do your fucking job, or we're going to replace you with people who will. Lastly, I mean, we're talking about parents protecting their kids and everything. We got a couple minutes for this one. President Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter. President Joe Biden's pardon of his son Hunter deepened an entanglement of politics and the rule of law that has tarnished faith in American justice. It is almost as certain as it's to worsen Donald Trump's second term. On Sunday evening, This move was a stunning development since the Biden came to office, vowing to restore the independence of the justice system, which he had said he eroded during Trump's first term. He said for fucking, I don't know, countless interviews, as did that Kareem DeJewel, whatever her name is, DeBar. No, he's not going to pardon him. Now, here's a dad who stuck up for his fucking son, but isn't this also indicative of the left's destruction of the system by, once again, doing something that every one of us know is fucking immoral? They have us fighting 20 different battles on a front every single day, and I don't think anything's going to change until men fucking step up to the plate with guns and do something about it.
I actually think you're 100% right. I mean, we knew right from the beginning that when they were prosecuting Hunter Biden, it was all just a show to pretend that the justice system in America wasn't politically motivated and there was equal justice for all. We knew that that's what it was. It was just because, Donald Trump was saying, I'm being politically persecuted. And they were like, no, look, the president's son, we're doing it to him too. So we knew this was going to play out this way. I'm not surprised at all that he pardoned him. I'm not surprised he didn't keep his word. What I'm worried about now is that it's who else is he going to pardon? Because all of these governors and mayors in their sanctuary cities, they have broken the law. There is no question about it. Harboring, inducing, transporting illegal aliens are all criminal offenses. And you also can get charged if one of those illegal aliens hurt somebody or killed somebody. So they all have blood on their hands. Are they all going to be prosecuted, or is Joe going to throw out some pardons for them too on his last day? I want to watch and see if that happens.
Frustrating, isn't it?
Oh, it is frustrating. But you know what? If he does throw out pardons for them, they're going to walk a straight line the next day, aren't they? And they're going to contribute, and they're going to, because they know that they will be prosecuted for future
behavior. Let's talk about American Groomer. Where can people watch that? And how can they support you for it?
All right. So thank you. Go to americangroomerfilm.com. The film is free there. You can watch it. Follow me at The Base Mother on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And, you can support me on americangroomerfilm.com. If you watch the film and you want to drop a few dollars there, I definitely appreciate it, but not necessary. It's more important that the knowledge gets out there. Watch this movie.
It is necessary. If you don't support her, you're a communist piece of shit who loves children being abused. Do you have any other projects that you're working on or anything down the pipe you're looking at?
I do, but there's one that I'm working on right now that I can't talk about it yet, but I'll let you know when it's ready to go.
Yeah, American Groomer was extremely well done. The editing and production quality was fantastic. Anybody hasn't seen it yet, go watch it. I absolutely highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Right, appreciate that. Friggin', that's Monday. I'm back. Head cold and all. Guys, we'll see how the week goes. Go follow The Base Mother on Instagram and go check out American Groomer. And, men, maybe it's time to do your jobs a little bit more. All right, that's it. We got Burn Pit Podcast coming up today, 4 p.m. Eastern. I don't even know what's up next. Spreely.com. Go check them out. Everything from all the news media articles you have. You got Shannon Joy. You got Pete Santilli. You got the Burn Pit Podcast. You got Report and Opine. Eric, I got to see if Eric's back tomorrow. Eric had, I'll let Eric tell you if he's up to it tomorrow, what's going on. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. Other than that, rest of the week is back. Lolo will be back on Thursday. And I don't know. I have no clue what's going to happen with this week. Maybe the asteroid will hit or Putin will launch some nukes and we don't have anything to worry about anymore. But other than that, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. And damn, nice spider on my keyboard freaking me out for a second. That's all I got for today. Go check out The Base Mother, American Groomer, all that good shit. And we'll see you guys tomorrow for more of the Rants of Izzo here on Spreely Media. Go help somebody today. And if you can't help them, just don't fucking hurt them. See you guys later.